Hello and welcome to Star Citizen Sunday with me, Ryan, aka Sifu Messiah. This is a weekly show which covers everything from the world of Star Citizen over the past week. Links can be found in the description for everything we discuss, so let's get on with it. This week, due to time constraints, Star Citizen Sunday will be split into two. Today we have 10 for the developers, Around the Verse and the giveaway, and tomorrow I will cover both of the live stream. If you are still to sign up to the RSI website, please use my referral code as shown on screen or in the description, and you'll receive 5,000 United Earth credits which can be spent in the Voyager Direct store for your ships, your character, or whatever you choose. You don't have to spend anything to sign up. It's only once you pledge that I'll be granted an RP point, which will get me some little rewards in the future. So in this week's 10 for the developers, we had Kirk Tomei talking a lot about components. Very interesting. First question being, with the Jan Scout's movable thrusters, can you update us on the tech development to support this, as well as any effect it may have on other ships, specifically the Cutlass and the Freelancer and the Reliant? So he says that the Jan Scout is currently a single seat with no ejection capabilities. There will likely be a dual seat later on. It has 4 articulated thrusters which will orientate themselves to up to about 90 degrees, which will allow it to be very maneuverable. They will allow the main thrusters to give sideways thrust without needing to animate them first, which is the problem with the Cutlass at the moment. The thrusters are so large it just looks flappy and awful. What they will do is throttle the speed at which they rotate so it will look far more interesting, far more realistic. They are still developing this, but in the near term, the Cutlass and the Lancer's thrusters may just likely move for VTOL takeoffs. So the next question is, are alien races treated as one manufacturer, or are there different brands of Jan, Banu and Vandal ships? Now currently there is just one, but they say in the future they may expand these races, sort of manufacturers. Other races may have their own components as well in the future, which the humans can use. The Jan Scout control scheme is a little unusual with 2 balls at the moment, which will be refined, but it'll be unique to the Jan's ship. And again, like the Vandal, Glaive and Scythe, the UI is different, so will it be in the Jan Scout as well. It'll be quite unique, I expect. So the next question is all relating to components. There was about 3 questions, well, there's about 3 different questions from 3 different people, but each with multiple questions inside, and it's all talking about components and about the component system. So currently they are tackling each component one system at a time. They intend for the components to be physical items within the ship which can be accessed for repair. So if your cooler took damage during an attack, then your cooling will shut off and your ship systems will begin to overheat. Then a player must run down to where the cooler is housed and physically repair it, or swap it out for a new one. They are refactoring all the components. Things like the cooler will have cooling capabilities, power draw, signature, etc. As soon as they get the system in, they'll begin to balance it. Now, components can either be bought, stolen, or salvaged. Later on, people will be able to tune them and overclock them. And if you become good at this, then you'll be known as someone who is good for overclocking. So you may get a lot of work and a career out of that by people visiting you specifically to overclock items. But it may be that you're just good with one particular component, or it's that you're good with one particular manufacturer, like an Aegis component, for example. They have done a pass on coolers, they are doing a pass on power plants, and they're in the middle of refactoring shields as a system on its own. Ships will have shield emitters powered by shield generators, and if you upgrade the shield generator, you'll increase the shield's capabilities of your ship. So the regen rate, the absorption rate, how quick it can shut power from the primary face to another face, so on and so forth. Shield faces for capital ships will likely have 4 shield emitters, for an example, each covering a quarter of the ship with their own specific faces, and there will be gameplay involving targeting a specific area of a ship to try and take out the emitter so that you can infiltrate the ship in that area. This will obviously create strategies not only for attack but also for defense. So it's going to be really cool to see what they come up with there. Anyway, next question. How do you decide the component sizing? They have heard that ammo bins might be able to hold fuel when not being used for ammo, and vice versa. Might other components grant storage space for one resource or another when removed? Now they say component sizing is done by looking at the sizing of the ships and then matching them up appropriately. Obviously, size 1 needs to be a certain size for it to fit within the smallest ships and so on and so forth. Each size component needs to be roughly this long by this height by this depth. This ensures that each component can be swapped out and fitted easily. It says we will be able to have certain components boxes like ammo and fuel which will be able to be used as a smuggler's cove, and eventually these will be able to be scanned as part of the ships to check for contraband. But they also may design something like a cargo hold disguised as a fuel tank, which will trick scanners into thinking it is what it's supposed to be. There's no way to randomly generate a cargo hold, unfortunately, like they said we could before, for smuggling. And if you think of each ship, you'll obviously know what each ship is capable of and where the contraband is most likely to be kept. So this is kind of a necessary game mechanic to make smuggling interesting and not obvious. So next question is, what are your thoughts on massively increasing the hull and the shields on all ships equally across the board? Currently, he says he feels like ship battles are over quickly and gives little time to respawn to ship systems when we'll be able to repair. Now they say when they refactor each system, they'll do a balance pass to change the minimum and maximum ranges of everything. Shields will involve gameplay like prioritizing shield faces, changing how it repairs, shield face hardening, etc. Once implemented, they will go and sit with each ship and test it out and tweak it, but they will be balancing consistently and constantly until it is done. I have noticed in certain ships that are now new to Arena Command, like the Sabre and the Vanguard, taking one of them on, the battles can last 5-10 minutes, and even in some cases they never explode, they just jump. So there's a lot of balancing to do. It's going to take some time, but they will get there. Next question, how do you coordinate efforts between gameplay feature implementation and relative ship completion? For instance, if mining was being brought into the client, would you put the Orion into production or just shelf mining until the Orion was done? Now they say the planning and communication plays a big part in this. They do feel that if they were to implement salvage, for example, then they would need to have a salvage specific ship for it to make sense. Again, if they create a mining mechanic without a ship, then it will just sit there until they have finished the ship. When they decide on a release date for a specific ship, then they can ensure that the systems and mechanics surrounding it are paired up and into the system at the same time. So a lot of communication, a lot of planning beforehand really helps. So last question, will some of the smaller capital ships be able to land Planetside? If they can, will we be able to walk around them and inside them? Now they say they're still discussing it now. They're deciding what ships can land Planetside and what can't. Also deciding whether smaller fighters will have quantum drives or atmospheric landing capabilities. It's kind of like a trade-off to suit the needs of what you want, so you may have one or the other. As they design each ship now, they decide whether or not it will have quantum travel or atmospheric capabilities. Medium or larger ships will have interiors which you can walk around in, and some ships will have shuttles to take you from the surface and back, whereas, for example, the Endeavour with that supercollier will not be able to land, so you'll need the front part of the Endeavour to take you down. Anyway, that was the 10 for the developers. Pretty cool questions, great answers, especially about components. Tell me your thoughts. So in Around the Verse episode 2.20, quite coincidental it's 2.2, starts off with news from Around the Verse. The LA office, it says they're handling the live test to get everything ready for patches. Components are getting refactored, and we've heard about components in 10 for the developers. More work is being done on the Caterpillar, and they are wrapping up the Heavy Marines outfit, including building the undersuit. So in Texas, they're working on getting 2.2.0 out to everyone's hands. They've got the first iteration of the public crash handler, which is what happens every time 2.2 crashes. You can automatically send feedback, which is excellent, and it'll get much better throughout the time as well. They've been talking persistence and what they want to persist. Obviously, shopping is one of them. Then things like player health and your ship health. Also, the new hostility sort of reputation needs to persist. So if you have a bounty on your head, you can't just be able to log out and log back in again in order to remove that bounty. Also, they're back onto updating the hangar lighting. The ones that are left are the aero view and the asteroid hangar. That is getting a new lighting fix throughout. So Foundry 42 in the UK, they're making the new user experience better, so they're simplifying the control system to make it more consistent. They're also simplifying the HUD, but with these systems it doesn't mean that they will all be simple now. It just means that if you want to delve deeper you can, but you don't need to. Also, they've got someone doing ship balancing full time now, so that should balance out the ships across the board. They're working on player traversal, soon we'll be able to vault, etc. And they're also working on a military skin and apps for the Moby-Glass, which we will use in Squadron 42. So in the Frankfurt office, they say there's a big push on the AI. Recently, they have some AI assignments like defending and patrolling, and they're working on them. They're also working on audio perception, which is where the AI will react to what they hear. They're building a new landing zone. They're designing AI archetypes. They say they have the high-level archetypes. They're just going to need to work on the lower ones. Designers also working on a looting prototype. Also, player oxygen consumption and quantum interdiction. Weapons have been reorganized and listed, and they are working on a new railgun. They are finishing the weapon rail system to allow for attachments. They're updating grenades, pushing more on procedural planning tech, and Cinematics are sorting out some of the Squadron 42 chapters, so they've been doing a hell of a lot of work. Anyway, the interview this week was with QA lead Vincent Sinatra. Do check the link below if you want to see that. In the wonderful world of Star Citizen, this is where Jared looks at the community creators like YouTubers, Twitch streamers, websites. He interviewed this week DJ Knight, who is a Twitch streamer. Do check the link again to his Twitch stream. Most valuable post goes to Josh Kabosh for his complete Star Citizen tutorial, which features many community videos from people like Board Gamer, STL Youngblood, and our very own org mate Aliciana, so well done to them all. And the sneak peek is the Reliant in Greybox phase. It's looking very, very close to Hanger, if you ask me. Anyway, that was around the verse, let's move on. So also this week we had a work in progress post showing us a slideshow of the Constellation and Freelancer upgrades, plus an Observis lifestyle post titled Go Startable Teams, in which we see how the recent upsurge of Banu supporters is changing the game. So as you know, thanks to a chap called Captain Webby, we were giving away a Star Citizen game package. This was intended for people who are yet to pledge into Star Citizen, and it gets you an Aurora LN, both Star Citizen and Squadron 42 games as it was bought before the split, plus some little extras. Now to enter, you had to leave a comment saying, "Give me the game!" And thank you to all who did enter, however there can only be one, and that winner is Jem Lee. Congratulations to you, you are now the proud owner of an Aurora LN plus Star Citizen game. I'll have an RSI rep send that round to you ASAP. So just a quick heads up for those who prefer to listen to Star Citizen Sunday on the move. I'm in the process of adding all of the episodes of Star Citizen Sunday to SoundCloud, which gets them into an MP3 format, so be sure to follow me on there. Today's episode will be up a little later. Once it's on there, I will be adding them also to iTunes as podcasts. So again, be sure to check it out. So that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you for watching, and thank you to our subscribers, plus a massive thank you to our patrons as you make this possible. If you like what we do and want to help us make it better, follow the link in the description to our Patreon page to learn more.